What's up, Premiere Pro users? This is Sean Schools as Premiere Bro. And I just want to say right from the beginning that I don't consider myself to be a YouTuber. I never thought I would ever have to give a update on a YouTube channel. But here I am with a Week in Premiere video podcast update. Some of you may have noticed I haven't been posting my Week in Premiere video podcast these past couple weeks, and I just wanted to explain why and give you an update on that whole sitch. For those of you that don't know, Week in Premiere is the Premiere Pro Week in Review. It's a weekly blog post, comes out every Friday, in which I curate all the latest and greatest Premiere Pro news, tips, and tutorials and all that stuff from that week. And Week in Premiere takes a lot of time to do. I have to listen to a bunch of social media streams and conversations. I have to watch a lot of tutorials. Sometimes I have to test out whether tips are truly accurate, etc., etc. On top of that, I supply my own commentary on the things I curate just to kind of provide some context and some additional value. You get the point. All of this adds up, and it was starting to cut into the time for creating original Premiere Bro content. But don't be sad. This video update isn't saying Week in Premiere or the video podcast is going away. They're just going to look a little bit different. So like I said before, Week in Premiere was taking up too much time. So this past week I took a little different approach to try and save some time and cut some corners and streamline the whole curation and commentary in Week in Premiere. So here's an example of the old Week in Premiere, and I apologize, it's a very small image, and that's because I'm working with the Adobe Spark video template. Anyway, you can see that there are some embedded tweets, and normally there would be a paragraph of commentary for each item. This may be new to many of you, but outside of Week in Premiere, Premiere Bro is actually curating Premiere Pro content during the week, kind of like on a real-time basis. And this is done on the Premiere and Post page. Premiere and Post is like a secondary microblog where I just throw up interesting Premiere Pro news, tips, and tutorials, many of which end up in Week in Premiere. And that's the rub. I'm basically doing the same thing twice. I'm curating stuff in real time and posting it on Premiere and Post, and then I'm embedding all that stuff in another blog post and writing additional commentary every week for Week in Premiere. So here we have the new look for Week in Premiere, and as you can kind of sort of see, instead of having embedded tweets or Facebook posts or Instagrams, these are actually summary blocks of the Premiere and Post blog. And this saves me a bunch of time because, again, I'm not having to do the same thing twice. And just to re-summarize and give an example of how this whole process works, let's say I find a valuable Premiere Pro tutorial on YouTube. I'll curate that, add a description, kind of my own words, some searchable keywords, and I'll post that on Premiere and Post. And then what this method allows me to do is funnel that directly into Week in Premiere every Friday. So what about the Week in Premiere video podcast? Well, obviously adding a video podcast on top of that old Week in Premiere workflow, it was just taking up too much time. And like an amateur YouTuber, and again, I don't consider myself a YouTuber, but I bit off more than I could swallow, and I was getting burnt out. So instead of making the video podcast a summary of the entire Week in Premiere blog post, in essence, recycling recycled content, the Week in Premiere video podcast will now be more like a top 3, top 4, top 5 Premiere Pro news, tips, and tutorials from each week. And that's it. That's the update for Week in Premiere and the Week in Premiere video podcast. It's going to be a much more streamlined curation and presentation process that's really centered on the Premiere and Post blog. And the video podcast is now going to be a highlight video instead of a full summary of the Week in Premiere blog post. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your viewership and your readership. And as always, my biggest inspiration is just listening and watching what's happening in the Premiere Pro user community. So it's really fun to kind of give back and capture this in a weekly snapshot in Week in Premiere. So again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.